I'm Eddie Lawrence, and this is Ready for Eternity, a podcast and blog for inquisitive Bible students. You've heard the words, "For by grace you are saved through faith," from Ephesians 2:8 so many times, it probably barely registers as a sentence anymore. It's on coffee mugs, it's cross-stitched and hanging on people's walls. If someone stopped you on the street and asked you to explain, in your own words, what grace and faith are and how they work together, could you? What does it mean that grace works through faith? Would you be able to explain that? A lot of Christians would struggle because these words have been repeated so frequently, we kind of stop thinking about what they mean. They are now what I call churchy words. These are words that are almost cliche. But you have to look past the cliche to see what this passage is teaching. And once you do, the picture is both simple and solid. Ephesians 2:8 says, "For it is by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not from yourselves. It is the gift of God." Let's strip the pew varnish off these two words for a second. Grace isn't a vague, warm feeling or a synonym for niceness. It's God moving toward people to whom he owes nothing. Grace is initiative which originates in God's love and his desire to offer mankind the gift of being in his presence for eternity. Synonyms for grace are goodwill, loving kindness, favor, and acceptance. Along with his love, these traits of God are the driving force behind his motivation to make a way to reconcile mankind to himself. It results in generosity. The scriptures make it clear that God delights in giving to those who trust in him. And speaking of trust, faith isn't merely intellectual agreement with a set of facts the way you might believe a news report is accurate. Commentator Klein Snodgrass points out that the underlying Greek word group, which encompasses the word faith, is far wider than that. It covers everything from simple mental assent to trust, reliability, and even faithfulness or loyalty as a way of life. Put together, biblical faith is belief, trust, and loyalty in one package, which means that obedience isn't an optional add-on to faith. Loyalty without obedience isn't loyalty at all. So faith carries the sense of reliance, trusting yourself to something outside yourself, the way you might trust your weight to a chair without needing to run a structural analysis first. Biblical, saving faith includes belief, trust, and loyalty. Belief, trust, and loyalty all go together, and if any of the three are missing, it's not genuine faith. Put plainly, grace is what motivated God to make a way for us, and faith is you resting your whole weight on it, trusting that God can and will do what he promises. And one more detail in the phrasing backs this up. It's, you have been saved. And that phrase, you have been saved, is passive. You aren't the one doing the saving. It's something done to you and for you. Paul doesn't just set grace and faith side by side. He says that you're saved through faith. And that word through communicates something important. In the Greek text of this verse, that phrasing marks faith as the means grace works through, not a second source alongside it. Picture it this way. Think of a water pipe. Grace is the water supplied entirely from somewhere else, and faith is the pipe it travels through to reach you. The pipe isn't the source of the water, but without the pipe, the water doesn't arrive. That's the relationship. One source, one channel. Grace is channeled to us through our faith. So what is the gift that Ephesians 2:8 talks about? What exactly is the gift here? Most English translations give you two pronouns. This is not your own doing. It is the gift of God. So what are this and it referring to in this sentence? Well, actually, only one of them exists in the Greek text. The word it in our English Bibles is supplied by translators to make for good English. Paul's Greek sentence didn't need the second pronoun. So the whole question rests on one Greek word, the word that's translated this in English, and it's the Greek word touto. And that's transliterated into English spelling as T-O-U-T-O. That single word is the center of a long-running grammatical debate because Greek pronouns normally match the gender of the noun that they refer back to. Greek nouns each carry one of three grammatical genders: masculine, feminine, or neuter. And that's just a grammar label, nothing more. Greek pronouns match the gender of whatever noun they're standing in for. In this verse, neither of the two obvious candidates, that is, the nouns grace and faith, are a good fit to understand what the word this, or touto, is referring to. You see, both grace and faith are feminine nouns in Greek, but touto is neuter. If Paul meant this faith is God's gift, we'd expect him to use a feminine word for this that matches faith. But he didn't. Daniel Wallace, whose Greek Grammar Beyond the Basics is a standard reference on New Testament Greek syntax, walks through four possibilities for what the pronoun this is pointing back to. 1 is grace, 2 is faith, 3 is the whole idea of being saved by grace through faith, and 4 is that this refers to nothing at all, with the word this simply functioning the way the words and especially would work in English. On the first two, his conclusion is direct, and he expresses doubt that either faith or grace is the antecedent precisely because of the gender mismatch. He concludes that touto, or the word this in English, points back to the whole preceding idea, the entire act of God saving you by grace through faith, and it's not referring to a single word within that phrase. It's referring to the entire idea. Jack Cottrell arrives at the same conclusion from a different angle. He notes that there is no neuter noun anywhere in that phrase for touto to match. And that's exactly what we'd expect if it isn't pointing back to a specific word at all, but to the idea of the whole sentence. And what that would point back to is the concept, you have been saved. An idea like that doesn't have a gender, since only nouns do. When Greek needs a pronoun for an idea rather than a specific word, it utilizes the neuter form. With all this in mind, God isn't handing you faith as the gift. It's the whole rescue which comes by means of grace, using faith as a conduit. Salvation is the gift. So going back to the pipe analogy, God's gift here isn't the water, which would be grace, nor is it the pipe, which would be faith. It's what results when the pipe serves as a conduit between you and the water. The result is salvation. He supplies the grace. Your faith is the means by which it reaches you. Paul closes this thought by ruling out any version of salvation you could point to as your own accomplishment. In verse 9, he says, not by works, so that no one can boast. It isn't the result of anything you or I did. You are instead the result of something God did. You are His workmanship. You didn't pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. And this is worth pausing on. because the same logic clears up a common misfire in other debates. Take the accusation that anyone who believes baptism plays a role in salvation must also believe a work saves them. That charge misses the actual claim entirely. In that view, the person receiving baptism isn't accomplishing anything. They're completely passive. They are passive physically because someone else is doing the baptizing, and they are passive spiritually because God is the one who is doing the work during baptism. The person something is being done to isn't the one doing anything. None of this means good works vanishes from the picture. Ephesians 2:10 says, "For we are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance as our way of life." Paul is just as clear that saved people have work to do. Snodgrass, citing John Stott, makes the point sharply. Stott said, "Good works are indispensable to salvation, not as its ground or means, but as its consequence and evidence." Said another way, we don't work so God will save us. We work because we already are saved.